Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Black and White United Show. I'm your host, Andreas. Thank you so much for tuning in with me this evening. In this episode, we are going to preview, I think it's round 21, our round 21 clash against Brisbane at the G, the old rival. We know what's at stake. Roll the intro.
1. Let's get started.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Hopper Bros Barbecue. Please, for all your tips and tricks and everything barbecue, give them a follow on Instagram. So the last time we played Brisbane, we can go back and all the other videos that I've got on YouTube now, we can look back on the review for that game. It was probably the most flawless performance that we have had as a football club for the entire season. Brisbane were giving it to Dacos. They were tagging him. They were doing everything. They were chopping and changing all these different players onto him. And eventually he ran away with 38 disposals and kicked a goal. His brother got 30 disposals, I'm pretty sure, and snagged the goal as well. All round, it was the perfect team performance. We've had a few really mature and I am going to say flawless performances this season. Brisbane being one of them. Gather round against Sydney and the Hawthorn game, I think were just exactly the way that we want to play in September. And there was glimmers of that's what we're trying to get to now. And I think that's something that we all need to sort of soak in is that's the standard. We hit it. We've had to move the magnets. We've got injuries. We've moved players around, whatever. And we're going to get back to that. And I think this game against Brisbane at the G Saturday night is the start of where we are going to in that trajectory, if that makes sense. So don't fret over the loss to Gold Coast. Don't fret over the loss against Fremantle or the boring game against Richmond where we did what we needed to do to get the victory. That's what we needed more than anything. Saturday night, Pies, Lions, G, retro round, hence the retro gear. This is all I had, so I thought I'd chuck it on. I've got some other stuff from the mid-2000s, but all my other stuff, unfortunately, was thrown out when I was a kid. So I couldn't, and plus it'd be too small for me now. So where am I going about that? But let's get into the ins and outs of what's happening this Saturday. Okay, so for Collingwood, the teams were announced this evening at 6:20. Scott Pendlebury makes his way back in. Jordan De Goey and Bobby Hill finally make their way back in. I believe that Geordie will be the sub in this game, and we called it on the Sharon Stand a couple of weeks ago and the premiere episode of that that we did on Tuesday night, and we said that we probably want to have Geordie back in as a sub if he does come in. I think that's going to be the case there. Omitted is Ed Allen, Tom Mitchell, and Lockie Sullivan, obviously with the season-ending PCL injury, which is a real shame. But obviously it paves the way for somebody else to come in and, we're testing our depth. And credit to Sully, we've got to say it. I don't think it's been said enough with I think Fly's played 14 or 15 games this year, and he's set himself into that side. And if you had a thought at the start of the season, he would have been one of those fringe players along with Ned Long. They cemented their spot in this side. And I think that's something that we have to remember that, he probably would be extremely close on playing the pointy end of September with us regardless. So it is a bit of a shame that he's gone out, but this now means that there's opportunities in the midfield for another player to grab it and to apply his trade. And I'm hoping it's Jordan De Goey. I'm hoping now he comes in and he has that X factor that everybody's talking about. This is a game where I'm not expecting the world from Geordie. I'm not expecting the world from Bobby Hill either. I would rather someone like a Jamie Elliott, Isaac Quainer, a Will Hoskin-Elliott, who I thought was really good against Richmond. These type of players take the game by the scruff of the neck and try and, honestly, at the G, choke the Lions out and just rip them to shreds. Because we have the opportunity now to solidify ourselves and send a message to the AFL and say, hey, listen, we had a bit of a blimp a couple of weeks ago, but don't stress because we're still here. We're going to get going now, right? Speaking of get going, it's halftime of the Bulldogs GWS game, and Bulldogs are 61 points up against GWS at the time of filming this video. So there's one for you. Okay, so the ins for Brisbane, we've got Henry Smith and Bruce Revel that have come in. Out is Connor McKenna, so he can be a bit damaging against us. His unorthodox style of football when the pressure's on, he can really dominate. And obviously Oscar McInerney. Now the big O, there's been talk over the past month or so from what I've heard on SEN and 3AW that he has been quite banged up and he is sore and he's probably not going to be able to push through the longevity of the season without being managed, very similar to the way that we're structuring our players leading into September. So him being out is kind of a good thing because he does tend to get the hold of us a little bit. And that's with, like, you know, when you have two rucks, the Mason Cox and the Darcy Cameron. We are going in with just Darcy Cameron. McStay was training with the defence yesterday, so you would think that McStay's probably going to pinch hit in the ruck. He may go into defence a little bit here and there. Obviously, Frampton's going to be as an emergency. So there's a whole different range of scenarios there that we probably won't know. Well, we'll get a better idea of it tomorrow at the captain's run, which I'm planning to go to. Hopefully, if everything turns out okay in the morning, I will be going to the captain's run. So we'll be able to get a bit more sort of insight of what happens there potentially. But I would say that McStay will probably still start in the forward line and then obviously see what happens down back throughout the game. But in terms of mix and matching, Tom Mitchell being omitted is a real big one. Now, we've said it on our lives and stuff before, and Hatters on the Sharon stand has brought it up a couple of times where, and I totally agree that with Tom Mitchell playing, it really does depend, not so much if you can fit Tom Mitchell and Ned Long in the actual team together. It depends more on, I think, who we're playing against. If we're playing against a team like Carlton, who are very slow around the pack and they don't spread too much, that's Tom Mitchell's forte. He can really play well in that type of scenario. I thought he did okay against Richmond. He got a fair few disposals, but there was a lot of hand passing backwards and probably kicking the ball when he should have hand passed, or he hand passed the ball but should have kicked it. And then as the game went on, he obviously took control because we're playing against a fairly inexperienced side. To have him omitted in this game, it doesn't ring alarm bells or anything, but even though he has a good history against someone like a Lachie Neale, I do think we need to be a lot quicker. And that's probably the reason why they thought, hang on a second, we need to spread a bit more. We don't really need that inside sort of mid during this game. We've got other plans and stuff to do throughout the game. So I think that's sort of the mentality of the coaching staff. Well, I'd hope anyway, because I think he had a 29 disposal game off the top of my head. So if he's played like that, usually someone who gets almost 30 touches doesn't really get omitted. So I think this is purely for matchup. With that being said too, someone like a Jordan De Goey is coming in. So you sort of really can't play Geordie, Sidey, Longy, and Tom Mitchell. So there's too much of a very similar style of play there. Obviously, Tom Mitchell's going to have, Jordan De Goey is going to have that more burst out speed, that more impact, which really you would assume would come on potentially at halftime or a quarter or halfway through the third quarter. He'll come out there and obviously make a fairly big impact. Scott Pendlebury coming in. I can tell you now in the midfield, we really did lack a little bit of leadership against Richmond just at times. When Richmond got a few centre clearances, obviously Nick Dacos stepped up there and flexed and showed what he's capable of doing, which was fantastic. But I just think with the leadership and the coaching of Pendles in the midfield, we should be able to get a really good balance in the midfield and especially spreading out wide and then cutting back into our forward line. Where are we going to win this game? Let's get to that now. Okay, so this is probably one of the first times that we're going to play against Brisbane where they haven't got an overly tall forward line. They've got some medium talls. They've got one tall forward in Eric Hipwood. And personally, even though he's a tall forward, I don't consider him a damaging tall forward. It's more that medium size forward, very similar to like a Brody Myercheck, like height-wise and stuff like that. So it depends on that's my personal opinion. It depends obviously what day you're going to get from him. He could have a day where he'll kick 5 against you. He could have a day where he can't even get 5 touches. So they haven't gone overly tall on the forward line. They've got Calamarchi, they've got Morris, Rayner, Ashcroft, Hipwood, obviously probably at centre-half forward, and Charlie Cameron. So really, height-wise, with, even I think Charlie Dean's going to be playing in the defence. Darcy Moore, Maynard, Houston, Josh Dacos, and Quainer. We're sort of a very, very close match there. Obviously, if Frampton was playing, you'd have more of that tall in the defence there to sort of lock down Hipwood a bit more, but you're probably going to see Darcy Moore either go on Morris or Hipwood, and sort of take it from there. I don't think we're going to see the Darcy Moore that runs off the player, is that quarterback and, controls the play from the centre half back line or runs away with it or becomes that Nathan Murphy type where he does intercept mark. I don't think that's going to happen this game. It's going to be a lockdown game. So we're going to rely heaps on Josh Dacos and Dan Houston and Quainer to get the run off there and do what they need to do. Harry Perryman as well. And like I'd say, Perryman's game against Richmond I thought was fantastic. He doesn't set the world on fire, but if you sit there and you watch him just for a little bit and the stuff that he does, it's the quiet stuff. It's the stuff that you don't notice all the time. He's such an important cog within our structure of our side. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he handles the pressure against Brisbane at the MCG. Where is this game going to be won? I think both forward lines have the opportunity to be electric in this game. I can see Archie. I can see Charlie Cameron, kicking, a few goals between them. I can see Jamie Elliott and I can see a Lockie Schultz turning it up during this game. Because of the forward lines turning it up, they've got to get the ball somehow. So the battle in this game is going to be in the midfield. You're going to see Lockie Neal start. You're going to see Nick Dacos start. You're going to see Pendles do everything that he needs to do to control the game, poetry in slow motion. You're going to see someone like a Dane Zorko just bust through the packs there. It's an arm wrestle. Do I think that we're going to win? To be honest, I think we're going to win this, and this is going to be the Collingwood that we've been waiting to see for a number of weeks now, probably since the game against Carlton, where it's like, oh, hang on a second, look at us flexing that third quarter. I think this is the game where you're going to start to see Collingwood really send a message out to everybody and say, we haven't gone anywhere just yet. We're here. This is the game where it's going to happen. We've got a pretty important few weeks coming up leading up into the finals. I think it's very important that we get this win against Brisbane. I think that we'll get the win against Hawthorn. Hawthorn's going to be another arm wrestle, but I think we'll get the win against Hawthorn. Mentally, I'm banking that we're probably going to drop the Adelaide game. And I'll get into those reasons when we do the review, the preview for the Adelaide game in a few weeks. And then Melbourne, I think, will give a good touching up leading up into the finals just to give us a bit of confidence, a bit more confidence going in and play us into form a bit better. So to finish off this video, it is retro round. It is something that I've been looking forward to for ages because, to be fair, we're not a football club that sort of does these type of things. We're very traditional. We had a version of the Swooping Magpie come out last season, which really they could have pushed a bit more, which would have been really nice. They've come out with a retro top. Now, just quietly, the retro top that Carlton came up with was obviously very similar to their current jumper with the collar and the old AFL shield. West Coast came up with like their old school style with the tone of the colours, and then also with the old AFL shield. Collingwood's come out with theirs. Now, I like it. I think it's grouse. Although, I love the touch of the Fly Emirates, the old school style Fly Emirates and how it says Fly Emirates and stuff. That's fine. I love the old AFL shield. What I would have loved, though, is if there was not this logo on the top corner of the jumper, because we didn't have it then, okay? So it would have just been like a nice plain 1999 Collingwood home top. Or you could have chucked in a small collar there. Now, don't get me wrong, I love it. It brings back a nostalgia feel. I don't understand the actual Magpie logo being that one on the jumper because it wasn't there at that time of where that jumper was. If I had have had my own personal choice, there was a photo of Craig Kelly, Gavin Krasiska, and Simon Prestigiacomo on the Collingwood website. I think it was yesterday or today, and all three of them were together. And Presti wore the old Collingwood clash top with the circle magpie, and when we were sponsored by Primus. That's the top that I would have brought out, something very similar to that, just something of a bit of a throwback. I mean, I could sit here and say, "Oh, bring back the ugly, beautiful Collingwood barcode thing," but that's an old Puma design, so I don't think that'll actually be able to bring that back. But look, it's retro round. It's something different. I love it. It's just, something for us, for me in my mid-30s and people a little bit older, just a little bit of nostalgia is always good. I do believe Brisbane are going to wear some sort of throwback jumper. I haven't done my research on it. It's only from what I'm hearing. So hopefully they do, and it's just a bit of an old school feel at the G on Saturday. The weather, who knows what the weather's going to be in Melbourne. But my tip is the Pies. My tip is the Pies, and I think we're going to do it by 28 to 30 points. I think this is the game where we flex and we send a message. Just watching the Brisbane game against Gold Coast, I didn't see anything there that worried me. They are going to come out firing. The first half is going to be a battle. We have to be mentally prepared. They might get a couple of goals in front. But stay calm, because we'll flex. We'll do a humble flex, and we'll put them back in their place, and we'll get the game by around about 4 or 5 goals. Tell me what you think. Make sure you drop a comment. Call it as you see it. And as always, go the Pies.